So here we are with Everything Dog Talk NY, and Dana, don't say it. I've been saying it all day to myself. Dana, I have it up here. Seyfried. There
Very
you go.
Good.
Dana Seyfried.
Yeah. Like the actress, Amanda Seyfried, only not related.
Does she have a dog? Because if she doesn't, I don't know who she is.
I don't know. She probably does. She's very young.
But anyway, so you are okay. So Dana, tell us about you. You know, you're not just like a regular dog trainer, right? You've got certifications and stuff like that.
Yeah. So I'll just try to quickly go through my dog training.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing. We're talking today about multiple dog households. So
right.
just
and
to
we're going
clarify
to use my experience with living in a home with many dogs as kind of a jumping off point, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so my dog training career is really like my midlife career change. I was doing other things prior to this, and I guess about 6 or 7 years ago, I started doing, work with shelter dogs, and then started hanging out with trainers, and then was like, wow, this is, I've always had animals. I've always had dogs. And Rachel left the building, and
my dog is eating cat poop. Sorry. TMI.
And
if I do that, just ignore me and keep going. Because it's not about me, it's about everybody else.
No, this is going to be fun. So then I was like, oh, this is I love doing this. I love the people that I'm meeting doing this, but I need to learn more about it. And also way back, I have kind of a history in academia to some extent because I have a master's in psychology. So
human psychology, obviously, right?
I need to make sure I know what I'm doing. So I started taking a lot of online courses. And like I did a Karen Pryor basic foundation course, which was awesome, and some other kind of online courses, and then decided that I would do, so there are a couple different academies for dog training across the US that are science-based, force-free, humane, positive reinforcement. And one of them is Pat Miller, and Pat Miller is a prolific writer. She's a great mentor, and she runs academies in Maryland. And so I decided that fit for me, and I would become a Pat Miller certified trainer. And the path to do that is to go through at least 3 of her week-long academies, which are very intense. You go to Maryland, you're always working with a dog. The first one is a shelter dog, and then the next 2, you bring your own dog or a client dog. And so they're just really, really intense week-long academies. The first one is on basic foundations, and then behavior modification. And then the third one that I did was on aggression. And
really quick, I'm sorry, I just have to ask you just to clarify so people know. Just because you go for a week and show up doesn't mean that you pass, correct? Doesn't mean you get the certification.
You have to pass, and she is rigorous.
I've heard.
Yeah, she is rigorous. She's very supportive. I mean, for me, it was a really good. It was not daunting, but it was intense. But if I had taken, I think, a different course, I could have procrastinated a lot more. It was just like, this is it. Every single day, it's 8 hours of classroom, and then like another 4 hours of homework and exams. And
like you leave, you go there. It's not like you're just doing this online either, right? Like you go.
No, you're there.
Yeah, and you stay in a hotel, and you're there all day. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And her amazing. She's on, I think, over 100 acres in Maryland. It's just this beautiful, beautiful place. And the classrooms are small. I think 8 is their limit. 8 trainers and a dog.
That's great.
Yeah, I don't know where I got. So it's just really intense. So in terms of, she has exams, homework, assignments, and then to pass, the final day is you demonstrating the work that you've done with the dog that you brought, either the dog that you brought, or if it's a shelter dog, a local shelter dog. So it's like a practical exam.
Yeah. I've heard that some people even ask to switch dogs, and she doesn't let you. She's like, no, this is the dog you have to deal with, and that's just it. Yeah.
And so for the first one, I had a shelter dog, a local shelter dog, and then the next 2, the BMOD and the aggression one, I brought my own dog, Helen, which we'll talk about a little bit because she's got some resource guarding issues.
Yeah, great.
And so she was the dog they took for the other academies. But anyway, yeah, you have to test out. I mean, you have to test out and you have to score, I think 90 or above to pass, and not everybody passes. But fortunately, a lot of people do, and I did.
So that's actually a good certification for people that are looking for reputable dog trainers, and not just somebody, you know, that's paid a lot of money for a fancy website and using old school methods, right? You can say, like, you know, what, you know, have you taken, yeah.
I studied under this person. And, like, you know, so there's Pat Miller, there's Victoria Stillwell's well known, the Karen Pryor Academy, the Academy for Dog Trainers, which is—
Who was the one that you guys went out to? Was it Wisconsin or something?
I didn't go there.
No. What was her name though? Because she's really good too. Was it
the one that Sandy and Anthony and Linda? Kim Brophy.
Okay. And she's written books too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, so you're really certified, and you know, and you have a behavior degree with humans as well.
I do. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And then I think all of us in this community that of trainers, you know, on Long Island, I think we all just keep like going to other classes and either online or in person and seminars and really trying to up our game. So, and then
it's fantastic.
So there's the Pat Miller certification, and then there's the certified professional dog trainer knowledge assessed, which is a test, which is a long test. And you really have to know learning theory and, you know, classical conditioning and operant conditioning and the ethics. Actually, ethics were a big part. I'll say that is one of the things I really loved about Pat Miller, is that ethics, standards, morals, big part of her program and a big part of
that's great. And basically how to work with the dog, you know, on a I don't know, non-aggressive level, I guess, right? Yeah. Like, yeah. So anyway, let's stay on track. I'm sorry, I could talk about that part for hours.
The dog is non-aggressive, or the trainer is non-aggressive?
No, like trainer not aggressive, right? Like you said, like ethics and morals. Like there's some people that might be using some pretty forceful, you know, punitive methods and saying that they have good ethics and morals, you know?
Yeah, no. That's none of that.
Right, okay. So great. So how does that apply with multiple dogs? And what, first off, did you have multiple dogs before you did dog training?
I did. I think as a child, I always had just everything, you know, dogs, rabbits, cats, whatever. But I think for the last 25 dogs, really like 18 dogs altogether I've had. But for the last like 25 years-ish, I've always had more than 2 or more dogs in my home, or in this situation, our home now with my husband. So I had lived in Manhattan. I had 3 pit bulls in a little tiny apartment in Manhattan.
Nice.
And that was an experience. And then moved to Long Island with, when I died, with 2 of them, merged into a household with a lab. So then we had 3, then they became seniors and, you know, kind of passed along. And then, so I had 2 seniors at one point, Walter and Emma. Walter was still one of the pit bulls and Emma was a lab. And we got a puppy, Martha, who's now our oldest dog, she's 12 and a half.
Okay.
And yeah, so we merged her into that family as a puppy, and then those 2 passed on. And then I'll just go through the cast of characters. Should I just do that?
Well, I was going to say, what compelled you to talk about multiple dogs?
You know, well, in our group, obviously the Facebook group, there have been, you know, several conversations about that, right? Like, and also, you know, but I was specifically about like what happens when things go south, right? What happens when they're not getting along? Yeah. And for sure, I've experienced that in almost every situation. I would say the only time I had 3 dogs living together that had no conflict were what I just described: Emma, Walter, and Martha.
The 3 pit bulls, the 3 big ferocious things.
No, those weren't the pit bulls. No, this
all right.
One remaining pit bull, Walter, and Emma, who was a lab, and Martha, who was a shelter dog. So she's like,
okay.
She does have.
By the way, I don't think pit bulls are mean and ferocious. I was being sarcastic. Okay, just for everybody else.
I know. So those 3, Martha as a puppy, Walter, and Emma, I think were the most cohesive group of dogs that I'd ever had. I never had a conflict. Nothing. They just were amazing together and really like snuggly, and yeah, they were good. But I think I interrupted you. I think you're going to ask me a question.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, but if you want
to talk about multiple dogs, right?
Yeah.
Because of the conversations that have gone on in our EDNY group about when things go south.
Yeah.
Because I have had things go south, right? And maybe I'll just talk a little bit about that. And then
great.
you can ask questions, or you know, we can just bounce off of that, because I think our situation is not uncommon, number one, and there are a lot of elements weaved into the conflict that we have in our home between two of our dogs that I think a lot of people can relate to. Okay, so
that's great.
I'll try to make this short, but so we had Martha and the two older dogs. They passed away. Martha was a single dog for a while. Then we adopted Willie as a puppy, and just amazing, precocious, like sight hound, clever dog mix. So we had the two of them for a while, and they were fine together. And then, we adopt. So Martha, Willie, a couple of years in between, and then another couple of years in between, we adopted a dog named Helen, who is the antagonist in this story. As a puppy, she was deaf from birth. She was deaf, and she also, at about 3 months of age, started really young. So as evidencing like resource guarding behavior.
Okay. How old was she when you got her?
Really, like I think
like
she
8 weeks kind of thing, or something.
She might have been 7 weeks. Like I would say she was young. I would say she was young. And she was deaf. And the thing that really has helped even to this day is that regardless of her behavior issues around resources, we put her in a puppy class at almost as soon as we got her, because we were also concerned about the deafness. Like, how is she going to focus on us? How are we going to train her? And so that puppy class really helped a lot with teaching her some skills that have come in handy.
Okay.
Now that we have
great. That's great.
So we had Helen. So we had Martha, Willie, Helen, a couple of years apart. Helen, 3 months old. She had a rawhide at that time. Sorry, I was giving my dogs rawhides. And it was down to like the knot, and I just tried to take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good idea. I don't recommend that. Please do not do that at home. But I was so used to doing that because of our pits, because they would swallow things, or and I could these were really big pit bulls, and I could do anything, they would be choking on the knot of a rawhide, and I could reach my hand down their throat, and it's just kind of like a habit.
Hachi's like that. I could take anything from him. So I get it. And it's hard to kind of go into that other, you have to really train yourself too.
Yeah, not a good idea. I don't recommend it, but I think I was in that, you've picked up something that you might choke on. Let me just shove my hand down your throat, and you're 80 pounds, but you won't care.
And I'll save you.
Exactly. Save your life, and nothing will happen. Well, when I tried to take the little rawhide knot from Helen, she bit my hand, and she still had the puppy teeth, but it was not a puppy bite. It was a real, it was a hard bite. And so we knew from that moment that she had some issues over her possessions.
Yeah.
Food could be, whatever, a high value object. And we did a lot of work around that. Okay. And how do I make this short? So we have Martha, Willie, Helen. Helen's resource guarder, she's deaf. Then we adopt Lucy. We foster Lucille, and I know you have pictures of our dogs here.
I was going to say, how about I put it up right now, really quick?
I don't know which picture you have.
I'm going to try to do the one with all of them. No,
I think Dakota's going to be missing from that because
right here. Just try this. What you got there?
Right. Okay. So brown dog on whatever that side is.
Right.
The
left.
I don't know. Whatever. Brown dog, Lucille. Yeah. Dog in the middle is Martha. She's perfection. And then white dog is Helen, deaf dog. All right.
Deaf resource guarder.
Deaf resource guarder. So those are the three. Willie's not in that picture, but I think he's in another picture. And Willie passed away last year. And then the other, so anytime anybody sees groups of our dogs, it's a group of 3, even though now we have 4 dogs.
Who's that?
So the other one in this picture is Dakota.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
Right. So it's Dakota, Lucille, Martha. Whereas before it was Lucille,
Helen was in there.
So Dakota and Helen will not be appearing in family photos together.
After the one that we'll show them, but let's
after that. Yeah. No, I don't even think Dakota was with us then. Anyway, so we get Lucille. We foster her. She's a very fearful, almost like a feral dog, but she melds in after a while. And then we adopt her, and then we foster and then adopt Dakota. And Dakota, many people are in our community are familiar with Dakota because many of my trainer friends have come and helped me out with her. So she came in, and Lucille and Dakota were already like over a year, I think, when we took them into the house. So they weren't puppies. The other ones were puppies. And so Dakota came with severe fearfulness and severe neurological issues.
Oh, wow.
To the point where we did an MRI on her and found out that she's literally, so some of the neurological issues manifested as like an awkward kind of gait and, that paw knuckling thing. Where's the thing? Like, when you take your dog to the vet, I'm trying to see if you take your dog to the vet and the vet does this little thing where they flip their paw upside down and then they're supposed to flick it back up. That's a neurological test. Well, she was like the Olympic champion of paw knuckling. She could just rest on.
It's like that double jointed person.
Yeah. So there were some motor things going on. So we got her an MRI. So she is missing pieces of her brain. She has a little pocket where her cerebellum didn't completely develop. And then I think that's significant for balance and gait and things like that. And then she also is missing some gray matter in her prefrontal cortex.
Wow.
And that's important when we start talking about the disconnect between what developed between her and Helen. Because if you think about, and I don't want to go into the whole, because I'm going to get it wrong, but how our brains are, if you think about the amygdala is behind the prefrontal cortex, and the amygdala is like the primitive part of our brain. And the prefrontal cortex, again, might get this wrong a little bit, is kind of the monitor or the restraint, right? So if that's not working correctly, the amygdala will fire off.
Yeah, it's kind of overcompensates for the part that's not
right. Like our amygdalas are going to fire off anyway, but whether we're a dog or a human, the prefrontal cortex has some impact on like, okay, just let's take it down a step, right?
Okay.
Anyway, Dakota comes into our house, and for like 2 years, again, 5 dogs, everybody's pretty cool. Everybody's fine. We have a resource guarder. We have a dog with neurological issues, and they're all fine and buddy. And then one day they get into a fight, and not a going to the vet fight, but a scuffle. And it was over stuff. It was food scattered on the ground or whatever. And
who was it? Just
Helen and Dakota.
Yeah. Okay.
The white dog and Dakota, who had that harness on in that other picture.
Okay.
But up to that point, I think this is quite common with people, is that, your dogs are getting along fine for years sometimes, and then they're not.
Yeah.
And what we found, so there was a guarding issue and they got into a fight, and then they had another one, because then it was like, well, we kept them separate for a while and then we would let them back out in the backyard, and they had another one in the backyard. And they might have had a third one, I don't know. But again, it wasn't enough to go to the vet, but we had to break them up.
Yeah.
And around that time, Helen was also, her resource guarding vis-a-vis our other dogs was getting worse. So I want you to just now show that picture. The two pictures, they're on the couch together, or the dog bed. The first nice looking one, and then the other one. Not that one. So let's show the other one first.
Sorry.
That's all right. Okay. So this is, the black dog is Willie, Lucille, Helen, and Martha, right? All like on this little thing. And then, and this is before Dakota, right? So then the next one. All right. So I love this photo in a way because this is where she used to stop. She would bare teeth, very clear to Lucille, you are way too close to me. And the other thing I love about it is Lucille is, kind of starting to move back from her. She's not making eye contact. Her head is going up. She's looking a little bit to the side. And literally after this photograph was taken, Lucille kind of slunk away, like curved her body around and moved away, and nothing happened.
Okay. I just want to show this one also, because we were talking about body language also, sorry. But, a lot of people might, see that picture with like, all of them and be like, oh yeah, it's just like dogs. Look how cute, but then when you really look, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. There's like some stuff going on here.
Yeah. And the funny thing is that if you're like me and you took this picture on your iPhone and you didn't have your reading glasses on at the time when you're looking at all these pictures, it took me a while. It wasn't until this picture showed up on my iPad.
Yeah.
That I saw that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And you can clearly see it here too, especially when you get the other dogs out, you can actually focus. And I think that's something that's really important also. Like we said that, for people I'd love to do a body language thing in the future for people, because there's a lot that we miss. So, go ahead. So,
yeah. So, and that is what she would do. And that's where she would stop, right? It's, baring teeth. And then the other dogs would usually, because most dogs really want to avoid conflict. So they would just kind of like do this sort of body circling motion away from her. What was my point? But anyway, around the time where she got into the fight with Dakota, we noticed some other things that were the resource guarding and her behavior around the other dogs was getting worse. So rather than just the snarling, she would lunge at them. She would, oh, there's a question. I'll come back.
I put that up just because I want her to know that we do see her question. You're kind of answering it now.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to get to, I will, that's a great question. I'm going to get to it. So, but around that time where she and Dakota got into the fight, she was also doing some increased aggressive moves towards the other dogs. Okay. And again, thank God those other dogs would be like, and still to this day, they kind of like roll their eyes and walk away like it's Helen. And we're just going to like move on down the road. But that went on for maybe 8 months or so of her behavior getting worse and worse. And we took her to the vet and she had some other weird things going on. And it took 8 months to find out that she had Addison's disease.
Okay. And is she 8 months old at this point? Or when did you start?
Years old. She's by that time, she's like 6 years.
She's like 6 years old.
Yeah. I guess we need one of those like charts, but
yeah. Timeline.
Dakota's probably 4, 3, whatever. Lucille's 4, but all.
So Addison's.
Yeah. So
Addison's.
And just to give you the lowdown on Addison's, if people don't know about it, Addison's is a disease. Humans can get it too, but basically your body does not produce cortisol. And what is we did sonograms. They couldn't even find her adrenal glands, which is where the cortisol is produced. So what does that mean? You cannot, if you don't have cortisol, if you don't have enough of it, you can't handle stress. If you have too much of it, you're like over threshold. But anyway, so she had 0.
Which I just have to say, that's pretty amazing that, she did as well as she did for as long as she did too, right? Really, if you think about it. Yeah.
And I think, this is where, some of these lessons are, and whereas trainers and owners, we could have just kept looking at this behavior as behavior, right? She's getting more and more aggressive because she's getting more and more aggressive because she's a jerk.
And you could have surrendered her to the shelter or tried to get her to rescue, because that's what people end up doing, right? Not everybody, but you know what I mean?
No, but that's true. And I could have given up. Like, there's so many things. And yet we just kept, and fortunately had several vets and an internist. And at the end of the day, I think we had to take her to the emergency room, but we just kept dermatologists. Like, we just, for 8 months, went through this behavior's, we can't live with this behavior, or we could, but there's something deeper. We need to, there's something deeper going on. And for sure. So there was Addison's. And the treatment for Addison's is to replace the cortisol, and you replace the cortisol by giving the dogs prednisone, which is a steroid. And when you give a steroid to a dog that is a resource guarder or has any aggressive propensities, you better watch out.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So my point is that, so she's got this stuff going on now, right? And, and this is now 3 or 4 years into so she's 10 now, Dakota's 6. So she's got that. Dakota's got a neurological stuff. They had this fight. I think for Dakota, a fight like that was very sticky for her. Like Helen could have had a fight like that with one of our other dogs, I think. And things we could have patched things back together. they could have patched things better. With Dakota, I don't think she could process that. I think it got very sticky. But my point is that, so we got to the point where the hurdles that we would have to jump because of their behavior, but also because of their medical issues and their neurological issues for Dakota, the hurdles are so high to get to help them coexist again, to help them feel comfortable with each other, that we went for management.
Okay.
All right. And this
management versus, like, you know, explain really quickly what does management mean?
Management versus
like behavior mod, I guess, like regular training.
You know, Dakota shows up, Helen gets chicken, Dakota equals chicken. So Dakota is now a cool thing, which.
So management technically kind of just means, how do you manage this situation in the household because you can't fix it?
Exactly.
Right? Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so tell us, how the heck did you manage it? It sounds like a lot.
So we separated them, and in the house, so we were in one house and now we moved into another house, which is just like amazing for management purposes. But fortunately for us, Dakota does really well and actually thrives with alone time.
Oh, yeah.
So we could put her in a separate room. She has her own bedroom in our house. And now we're living in kind of I think we talked about this in the Facebook group at some point, where how lovely ranch houses are for multiple dogs.
Oh, yes.
So she's at one end of the house. The other 3 dogs are at the other end of the house. She and Hal, there's a separate exit, you know, each.
Oh, for outside. Yeah, to take her outside.
So I can take Dakota, Lucille, and Martha out one way and they can do their thing. And then I can put Dakota back in her room, and I can take Martha, Lucille, and Helen out the other way outside. You know what? So they have not met in the house for, I think, at least 2 years.
Okay. So we have to address really quick, what does somebody do if they have a dog that isn't okay behind, you know, right, being separated?
So, right. So there's a few caveats with this, right? Because first of all, these dogs are living in a home with a trainer. They're living in a home without children. They're living
for you. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, right. So, and they weren't, neither one of them was like, or is, I got to get to this other dog and have a fight and, you know, kill this other dog. You know, neither of them are, you know, busting at the seams to get at the other dog. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So there are
Yes.
a lot of things that made that decision to keep both of them safe in a way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think
and a little easier to make that decision.
Yeah. And I think that if our management fails and they were to get into a fight, it still would probably not be a vet visit fight. Do you know what I mean? Like it's probably, it's going to sound awful. It's going to look awful, but we can break it up and whatever. But I don't.
Right. Especially because they wouldn't be unattended. Right. So like these dogs wouldn't be unattended, even if they don't get along in a home, you know, you're watching them and taking them outside, making sure the other dogs are locked up or whatever.
Right. And when we talk about management, you know, just keeping dogs separate, we talk a lot about layers of management. So just so you know, the layers of management in my house might sound excessive, but it makes, I can sleep at night. I can leave my dogs alone during the day because Dakota's in her room. The room has a door. There's a dog gate in front of that door. And then to get to the rest of the house, there are 2 other doors to get to the rest of the house.
Okay.
Right. So for her, she'd have, there's no way. There's no way. And even for
I love the baby gate with the door, right? So if the door opens, at least you still have the baby gate there. If somebody, you know, accidentally opens it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really simple added layer to management, right? Especially when you have 2 dogs that aren't getting along, or you have any kind of issue with a dog that, you know, is whatever. So double layers, in our case, maybe triple layers. I lost track of what your question was.
No. So we were just talking about what do you do with a dog that, you know, really isn't okay being separated?
So interesting. So I needed them separated, right? So Dakota's easier at being separated. Helen, not so much, but I still needed her at times to go into a crate if I needed to bring Dakota out or whatever. I needed her to have a safe. I needed both dogs to have a safe spot. In fact, I needed all dogs in my house to have a place where they can feel safe. All right. And I might circle back to that. So with Dakota, cool in her room. With Helen, there's a crate in our kitchen, and she likes her crate. It's always open, but we used her crate and we did a protocol called the relaxation protocol, which I still do. It's very lengthy. At some point we can link it probably in this video, or I can just put it in the,
yeah, if you send it to me, and then I'll put it like in the description afterwards.
Right, or I can send it to the group or whatever. But it was developed by a vet behaviorist named Dr. Karen Overall, and it's 15 phases of basically helping a dog feel comfortable, either in a crate, in a room, and proofing it. Really, it's like a relaxed stay.
So I'm sorry, really quick, because I'm kind of having this issue too, and I know other people are also. If you have a dog that hasn't been in a crate for 2 years, right, and you're trying to get them back in, like my dog Cass, I can't, like, I would have to force him in there, and then he's going to hate it. So this relaxation techniques would be good to try to retrain a dog for a crate.
Yeah, but in the meantime, as you're doing it, so for me, I chose the crate for her. I've worked with clients where they've chosen a mat or a mat behind a gate.
Yes.
Or, I mean, we'll use it for clients who don't have a conflict, but just need a dog to go settle, even with a dog and, an only dog, whatever, to go settle. And it can look lengthy and kind of daunting, but if we split it down, because it's 15 phases, it could take 15 days. It could take a month to go through everything.
Yeah.
But it can be done in 15, 20-minute increments once or twice a day. Okay. But it carries a big punch. No pun intended, but it carries a big punch, I think, to get through all 15 phases. Okay. So that's what we did with Helen. So Dakota's pretty cool going by herself, but Helen, I also wanted her to have a place where she could go and relax, and that was her crate. And if I needed to, shut it, right? So we started out though without it being shut, and now most of the time it's open, but I can shut it, and she's fine with it.
Okay.
Did that help answer your question? So there are ways, yes, to help
retrain in a crate.
Either crate train, or, I really like X pens a lot, depending on the dog and whether the dog is going to bust through an X pen, or behind a baby gate, right? Yeah. So if you've got, a house with a corridor or whatever, so you can put a baby gate and then a mat on the other side, and then you do the relaxation protocols there, right? So you're teaching your dog, okay, your safe space is, I'm going to open the baby gate, and you're going to go lay down on your mat or your bed or your whatever and relax.
Right. Okay. And I mean, obviously that's not something that's going to, I just don't want to have people misunderstand. That's not something that's going to happen like right away. I mean, it's not, it's a learned behavior, right? You're going to have to, practice it and go through it and put a little investment in.
Yep, it is.
But it will have a good turnout.
I love it. I really love it. I sometimes it is hard to get people on board with it because it seems really lengthy, but it's for, I mean, the end result is gold, I think.
Okay.
I was going to say something else. Oh, so that's an answer to your question. Yes, we kind of have to go, especially with a dog that maybe hasn't been in a crate for a while or has never been in a crate.
Yeah.
And the crate might not be the best place, right? But some sort of confinement. Like I can think of, like with Dakota, if she hadn't been comfortable going back in her room, I would have done it in her room, and then I would have started to move out of, with just the baby gate, right? The dog gate. Do you mean, like maybe not closing the door, but then still doing the relaxation protocol. She's in the room, the dog gate's closed, and I'm tossing food in there. Makes sense? And then I guess the other thing that was a turning point for me with these two dogs was even with all of that, I still was beating my head on a wall a little bit about, but maybe I need to condition them to like hang out in the same space or hang out next to, and I worked with a group, their company's called Pet Harmony, and they wrote a phenomenal book on enrichment. And anyway, I worked with them on this issue, and they really helped me start to move away from these dogs that are going to be able to live happily together in a room again to let's teach them, if they are to see each other, to run away from each other rather than get them back. Let's teach them that you know, an emergency turnaround queue, or in the case of Pet Harmony, they call it a flight queue, where I say run to your crate or your room or whatever, and they just take off. And at the end of the day, the goal is that seeing the other dog is the cue to go to their safe spot.
Gotcha. Okay.
And that is, in effect, what I would like these two dogs to do. If management fails and they're face to face, I would like to be able to give them their cue and they run happily to their safe spots.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll put that link up also. What was it? Play something? Play? No.
It's Pet Harmony.
Pet Harmony.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got the P.
Yeah.
Pet Harmony. Okay.
Yeah, we can do that too.
So that's a good thing, you know, to kind of teach also. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you want to, so that's kind of, I mean, that's my multi-dog came in late was, some of it. Oh, the other question was, is her resource guarding towards just the dogs or to the humans? I believe the other question was.
Yes.
So mostly towards the dogs. However, if we, most of the humans that come into our house don't even realize that she's a resource guarder, unless they're astute enough to pick up on the communication that she gives to, oh, awesome, Tara, perfect. If they're astute enough to pick up on the body language that she's communicating to the other dogs, then they get that. But with us, we don't see it. I worked a lot. She would resource guard, you know, against us. If we did an assessment and did a hand in the food bowl test, she's going to flunk that with flying colors. So we don't put our hands in her food bowl. We did a lot of counter conditioning of us approaching the food bowl or approaching a nylabone or a bully. She doesn't get bully sticks that much because she just kind of hoards them and hovers over them for days. So she doesn't get those anymore. But, you know, I would say we've gone from approaching her food bowl just inadvertently even, and her, you know, stiffening and head goes into and hackles are up, and maybe a snarl to, I can get right next to her food bowl and toss something else in. And so really not against, I mean, actually this dog has never met a human that she doesn't like. And so humans rarely see the resource guarding.
Right. Okay.
But if a human, let's use her and Martha as an example. They both have, Martha has a crate too that is wide open and sometimes she goes into. Any human in the world could, I'm not recommending this, but any human in the world of any age could crawl into Martha's crate with her. Nothing would happen.
Right.
Any human of any age could stick their hand or their face into Helen's crate and they might get bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is,
again, it's knowing and understanding, right? It's like people, they're all different. You can have 3 kids and every kid is different. So,
right. And let me say that would be fair. Okay. You're sticking your head in my space. There's a little bit of fairness there.
Agreed.
But she's going to react differently because of her. We're not fixing the resource guarding out of her. We're not fixing it. It's there. It's lessened. It's modified. Again, we manage it. We taught her a great drop it. You know, things
I'm
like
all
that.
about like respecting, you know, like respect the beast a little bit. That's one of her issues. So you just kind of respect it, you know, right? I mean, you can't fix everything.
No. And I think, you know, particularly when there's aggression involved, don't ever expect that you fixed it. Don't ever expect that a scenario isn't going to arise that's going to stimulate that behavior again.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. I feel like a lot of people, you know, they approach dogs almost like robots, you know, like, oh, we're just going to fix it. We're just going to make it be the way we want it, you know? And it's like, you know, if your kid was born, you know, with 3 fingers instead of 5, like you can't, I mean, yeah, maybe you can get surgery or whatever, you know what I mean? But like sometimes you just kind of accept it the way it is. I just want to say really quick that they're asking about the links, and after the episode, it might take us a few days, or me a few days, but I'm going to repost this video on the YouTube channel and in the group and stuff, and we'll have the links attached for you guys, but feel free to just Google it as well. You know, I mean, you can in your own time, if you want to, you can absolutely just Google it and you can find the link as well.
I'll
And
put
here's
the relaxation protocol into, I'll just post it in the group, you know?
okay, cool. Perfect. Can you read all of that?
I can, it's showing up. I don't see names, but we're looking to rescue. Are we reading the same thing?
Yes.
Okay. We're looking
I don't have my glasses on and I probably should have put them on, but yeah, so you read that.
I will read it out loud. And the print
Great.
is so that's cool. We are looking to rescue a third dog. Our first two are very dog friendly, and while large, their best of friends are much smaller. Of course, I would say that. So smaller dog isn't an issue. The only problem is they share all of their food and toys. Beyond keeping them separated at first during mealtimes, what can I do to make sure there isn't any territory in the beginning by the new dog beyond asking the rest? Okay.
It's a great question.
Good question. Just keep it up there for a minute because I might,
yeah.
a couple sentences there.
Hi, Tracy. Go ahead. Sorry.
All right. So I'm going to address a couple things. First of all, the first thing is they're two big dogs, but they get along with smaller dogs. Okay. So let's focus on that for a second. That's great. But they might not get along with every small dog. And I think we always have to take, and I know tons of people who have ginormous dogs living with super small dogs. And yet size does matter. And should things go south, and they go south between a big dog and a tiny dog, or a dog, you know, where there's such a discrepancy in size, the tiny dog is going to bear the brunt. So just kind of keep that in mind, that is something, again, great that they've had no issues with smaller dogs. But if the smaller dog instigates something with the bigger dogs that have never had an issue with the smaller dogs, the smaller dog's going to lose out. So that's just, I think, really something for all of us to keep in mind is like, when we bring dogs into our house and they're different sizes, we need to take some extra precautions.
Yeah.
They share, so these two share all their food and toys. Beyond keeping them separated at first during mealtimes, what can I do to make sure there isn't any? So a couple things. So bringing in this other dog, I would separate them during mealtimes. And I think I would for a very long time. That might've been exaggeration. Weeks, maybe months, depending, until you really see what's going on. Take up all the toys, all the bones, all the everything. Just remove those items as potential conflicts, right? Or potential areas of conflicts, because that's where dogs have conflicts over resources. Can
I ask a question about that? Can they possibly, like, if they have the baby gates in the separate areas, like, I guess I'm not saying leave it all out, right? But like if you had like the box with the dog toys in a separate room and they kept them separated, right? Like they could, kind of do it that way.
Yeah, totally. I just wouldn't leave, all of these things until you have a real understanding of how these three dogs are getting along and how this new dog is behaving. And just because, and then the end of it was beyond asking the rescue group if they show that tendency, we don't know. Rescue groups don't know. A dog might show a tendency to resource guard in a shelter or in a rescue environment and then come home and not show it. And the opposite might occur. This
kind of goes along with that, because I'm thinking with puppies too, right? Puppy versus an adult would be a lot different as well, right? Like puppies also have, don't they go through changes and stuff? Like, 1 year they act a certain way, at 2 they're different. Like by the full maturity, you have different stuff versus bringing home like a 7-year-old, shelter dog, which obviously there's, you have to figure out that too.
So talk about the differences in introducing new puppy versus, So, okay. Anytime you're bringing in a new dog, puppy or adult dog, I think it's really important to have a realistic kind of, assessment of where your current dogs are at. Are you able to meet all of their needs? Do they have behavior issues that are not addressed or not modifiable or not fixable, or, do they get along with other dogs? Have you had other dogs in the house? Like a realistic assessment of the behavioral and physical health of the current dogs.
How long do you think that would take? Let's give it some type of a time frame. 2 days, 2
introducing-
weeks, 2 months, 2 years?
Wait, introducing a new puppy?
No, what you're just saying, having an assessment. It doesn't mean,
Oh,
I'm thinking of the big picture of all of the different people that would be like, oh yeah, I brought the dog home for an hour. I've got my assessment.
no. Yeah, I mean, months or a year. I mean, like you really want to know your current dogs before you bring in another dog. And ideally, your current dogs are mature, which means 2, 3, 4 years of age. Because by then you've pretty much, I mean, nothing's guaranteed. Behavior is really fluid, but by then, you know, they've reached maturity, and I think you can get a better handle on, you know, who they are as adult dogs, right? So puppies, though, my dogs are trying to get out of there.
I know, we're actually reaching that limit.
I know. They're in the room with my husband, and I'm pretty sure he's on.
I hear Hachi at the top of the stairs scratching out the door too.
Anyway, puppies and older dogs. Okay, so super slow. The difference is that a puppy's going to be a puppy. Most puppies are going to come in. They're going to be at the faces of, or the muzzles of your older dog. Again, I really like taking things really, really slow with puppies. Teaching both the older dog, hopefully you have an older dog that's okay with being separate. Like, you're not necessarily in another room, but maybe behind a baby gate. I love X pens for puppies. Do you have the picture of when we brought we had a grand puppy here for a while, where there's the X pen there in the kitchen?
Yep. Somewhere. There you go.
Yeah. So the bigger dog is Martha, and then the little tiny dog, his name is Bagel, and huge size difference, number one. And this was after 2 weeks of Bagel being separated from the other dogs in that area. So we had 2 weeks where, for the most part, he was, you know, when he was out with the dogs, we had that separation.
Okay.
And then
can I just say really quick, it took me 9 months to get my cat to be with my dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long time. We had the baby gate, and that cat was smart. He knew to stay. He could have jumped that gate whenever he wanted to, but he would just sit behind that gate, and like, you know. So anyway, 9 months, a long time, you know.
Yeah,
so this is, you know.
Like I have a client now, lovely, and they've had to merge some households, and they have an 11-year-old Chihuahua and a 6-month-old, like shelter dog, right? Like puppy, but he's 6 months old. She's 6 months old, and already like 5 times the size of the Chihuahua. And the Chihuahua really doesn't want to have a whole lot to do with the puppy, but the puppy keeps like charging the Chihuahua, and aggravating the Chihuahua. And the Chihuahua's 11. She's probably got some skeletal or muscular pain, right? Because she's 11. She's probably got some arthritis. Anyway, so we've set up X pens and relaxation protocols for the puppy, and activities for the puppy to do without the Chihuahua, and really helps them manage the situation, so puppy doesn't even have the opportunity to go charging over in her adorable puppy playful way.
Yeah.
This Chihuahua, right? And we need to set them up, and all these people who are bringing puppies in need to know that you've got a puppy, you know, 4 months, 5 months, and then they go through this adolescent phase, which is very rocky and very up and down. And so integrating them into your household, can take months, years, whatever. And there might be times for where you need to take a break. I mean, where the dogs need to take a break.
I don't know if you were ready to move on. I have a feeling that's Leslie. I can't see the number, the name.
Is it Leslie?
I bet you it's Leslie.
It depends. I don't know. And it depends. Your dogs will let you know.
So it says, am I doing damage to my 2 dogs emotionally, to their behavior, and to their behavior by bringing home foster dog every few weeks?
And my answer is it depends. And your dogs are going to let you know.
And I think too, I'm just going to reiterate, because Leslie and I have spoken, whether it's Leslie or not, to go slow. You know, there should be, you know,
Well, again, so I've had friends' dogs and clients' dogs. I choose them very carefully in our house, and they've been in our house for a couple of weeks and never, ever seen our other dogs.
Right. And that's okay.
Totally okay.
You know, I feel like we get this idea, you know, and I've actually I'm going to use the word counseled. I've counseled some people on, they want a second dog. They want their dog to have a friend. And I'm like, dude, your dog doesn't want a friend. Your dog is so happy with just you and being alone. Like, we can't put our wishes and what we want on our dogs, right?
Right. We can't, and we can't expect that, I mean, geez, these dogs aren't cheap. We're just like, okay, I want this dog, I want that dog, I want that dog. We try to do our best to like, choose dogs that we think are going to get along, but we still didn't, we didn't ask their opinion,
Right. And it changes. A meet and greet, you take them home and, it changes,
This is a great comment. I've had 2 Shih Tzus and a Pit Bull for many years. They would share their food. One problem was one toy. I threw it out and no more issues. It was only one bone gone. Perfect. Yeah. And in the house that I had before with the 3 Pit Bulls, we just could not have anything of higher value than maybe a Nylabone. Yeah. That was it for their lives. They never got a bully stick. They never got or if they did, they got it someplace else. But for the most part, we just and that was it. Yeah. We didn't do anything more than that, than just make sure there wasn't anything of super high value and they were fine. I
just want to add this really quick, that high value also depends on the dog, right? Yeah. We have shelter dogs that a ball, they will eat you. I shouldn't say, I'm sorry, not all shelter dogs, but just dogs in general, right? A tennis ball could become very high value.
Right.
To a dog.
Totally. Yeah. So it's in the eye of the.
But again, that's the assessment, right? That's when you start to understand your dog's behavior and yeah,
I don't know if there are any other questions. I wanted to touch on 3 things about our dogs and what people go through when relationships go south between dogs. And it's totally legit to think about rehoming, right? Why didn't we rehome these 2 dogs? Because I do not think they're ever going to be comfortable together in a room again. Maybe when they're old, but I don't think so. So why isn't rehoming an option for us? And yet it is a totally reasonable option for many, many people, but it's not for us. Not just because the fact that we adore both of these dogs, but number one, as I said before, the management is very easy. We don't have one dog in a room trying to bust the door down. We don't have a dog in a crate trying to bust the crate down. Yeah. Neither of these dogs is really rehomable. The dog, Dakota, has neurological issues. She's fearful. We have Helen with resource guarding issues and major, major, major medical issues that are costly and that have taken a long time for us to wrap our heads around how we manage just the medical, medical issues. And, I feel like I'm blabbing, but the talk about maybe it was Leslie, I don't know, but let's say all of our dogs, get old, they pass away, but Helen is the last one standing, right? I can't imagine a house with only one dog. I've always had multiple dogs, but to bring in another dog with her permanently, like a puppy or whatever, is not fair to the puppy, because for sure she's going to show some resource guarding activity towards the puppy, but it's also not fair to her. It's really not fair to her, because if you think about a dog that is showing some resource guarding, she's insecure about her resources, and why stress her out? Yeah. It would be really stressful for her. And this dog has multiple, she's had cancer twice. Like, why would I bring another, So I think we especially for those of us who really kind of thrive on multiple dog homes, we still need to take a step back and is this good for them? Is it good do we have the resources? Should they go south? Yeah. Yeah. Were there other questions that we didn't?
Can you see the comments, or it looks like, I don't know. And I'm sorry, everybody, if I'm not getting back to all of your comments. I see you, and you're all awesome, and thank you for tuning in. Some dogs are great at taking in new fosters. I think that was just kind of in reply to who I thought was Leslie. Yeah. So, I don't know. I feel like we could there's just so much more. Was there anything else? Guys, get your questions in now, because we are going to have to dismount. But keep in mind, in 3 weeks, we're doing enrichment. Dana and I are going to talk all about enrichment, which is kind of like part 2 with this whole thing. Is like we said, right, Dana, that if you have a dog that's not really okay alone in another room, the enrichment could really help also on top of the relaxation, right?
Right. And like in our home, because I have to keep these 2 dogs separate, and Dakota is probably more separate than Helen, I have to really make sure that I'm adding things to her life so that she's, she finds her joy, right?
Yeah.
Because she is more isolated than the other dogs.
Right. Okay.
She also needs it. Like literally, she's very fine having her, I relate to her introverted sort of personality. The other thing I wanted to say about management, and these are all things that we can even go and talk more about in the EDNY group, but management is a habit. So if you think about management as prevention, like you're putting all these kind of layers in place. I mean, muzzles are also an example of management. Yeah. A dog on a harness with a tether is an example of management. I think that we are good at management in our house for 2 reasons. Number one, well, 3. I'm a trainer. I worked in a shelter for a long time. Those of us who have worked in shelters or volunteered in shelters know that is like second nature to us, how to maneuver dogs that might not get along in and out of tight spaces. And I can't say enough about that experience for me in terms of learning about management. And then the third thing, you and I had this conversation last week about how when you develop a management plan, you're developing a new habit. And I think we talked about how long does it take for a habit to form, and I think it's 90 days.
458 or something.
450 days. I think it's 90 days. But you have to give yourself some grace and know that during this time where you're developing this habit of closing the dog gate, closing the door to the bedroom, closing the door to the outside, whatever you have to.
Setting up enough time to set them up with enrichment or whatever, right?
With whoever else in the house, whoever else is in the house. I'm taking Dakota out, you've got to keep Helen in. I'm taking Helen out, you got to keep, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
All of that stuff is for it to work well. Part of it working well, I think, is understanding how to develop, that you're developing habits and what helps you as an individual develop habits. Could be Post-it notes all over the place,
Yes.
Did you do this? Did you remember to do that? So I think that's one of the other things I wanted to say.
I feel like it's like adjustment.
For sure, management, management, we always say like management always fails. I think management fails more often.
Who says that?
Everybody does. But I think it fails more often in the first 3 months, 6 months or so of a management program, because it's the development of a habit. Who says that? We all do. Because you still have to be like kind of prepared. Like in my house, if I felt like if the management failed, I would end up with a dead dog, I'd be doing something else. Do you know what I mean? Something else would be happening, but I don't think I'm going to end up with a dead dog. The
thing that scares me about that is that, when we say that management fails, and then you have like some jerky trainer that will say, well, I'll fix your dog and send it to me for 2 weeks for $5,000. I think that that's very important to not fall into that as well. Right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
It's all promises. And I personally think management does work. I think it works for you, And it doesn't, there's nothing wrong with it.
I agree. I wish there were research on that, because I think a lot of people are very successful at management.
I know a handful of people in the group that do that. They do management, and I say kudos to them for not giving up on their dogs. Yeah. Thank you for not bringing them to the shelter, so me and the other volunteers have to walk them. And and there is ways. It's not for everybody's lifestyle. That much I will say. It's an extra burden. It can be stressful, but like with all adjustments in life, once you're over that big hurdle, and like you said, you create a new habit. It can be okay. And just because you have to think outside your own box of what you felt was perfection, right? It's not all perfect.
Yeah.
How many people live with their husbands in their house and one's sleeping on the couch and one's in the bed, and that's management, and they're making it work, I mean. Bad analogy. I'm single, so I sleep with my dogs.
That's divorce court in my home.
All right, really quick. We're just gonna get these guys. Oops, sorry. Just really quick. I've noticed my dogs are learning their routine as well. And Tara, I feel like you've really gotten a lot less stressed about it once you've realized this perfection isn't going to happen, you know, and you're going to make your own perfect world, you know, and having a special needs daughter, I can tell you that we have an imperfectly perfect world over here, you know, with my crazy dogs.
I love what she says about the routine, because dogs just thrive on routine and predictability.
Yes. Yes. All right. One more. What is Denise saying? Sure, it's hard to give up.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Great minds think alike, Denise.
Yeah.
Exactly, Tara. You are, and you're doing a great job. So, all right. So, I guess that's it, right? And we'll see everybody back here in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And listen, for anybody that's still out there, if you guys have any other questions on this, it's great stuff to talk about. For whatever reason, we've tried to, on Trainer Tuesday, to put stuff up and have engagement, but people really aren't that interested sometimes. But, you know, feel free to put something out there and tag Dana, you know, and maybe she can answer questions and it can help other people too. That's really the whole point. We all love dogs, right?
Yeah.
We all love the dogs and we want to do what we can for them. So.
Yeah, so for sure we can continue this conversation.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right, good stuff.
All right, cool. All right, great. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks a lot, Dane. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.